Hello again, welcome to Spartacus Revision with Louis and Robbie. Today we're doing Geography Paper 2, and we're going to be looking through the exam questions and how to answer them.
Yeah, we're going to look at the mark schemes as well and really, see what we need to be including. Right, first question.
What should we start with?
We'll start with describe the underlying theory, concept or issue which form the basis of your fieldwork inquiry. So for this question, Robbie, you need to note the command word, describe.
You got to look for the hook in the question, basically.
Exactly. We're looking at describe.
Describe. So if you, in your exam, you get a highlighter and you highlight the describe word, and then you highlight the hook in the question, which is what you're going to be linking back to.
Exactly. Yeah. So for this question, we're going to be including a theory, a concept, or an issue, which form the basis of our fieldwork inquiry. So we're looking at the river case study here. So on January 17th in Somerset, on the River Holford, we set out to look at how the river parameters changed as we went downstream. That's not going to get you too many marks, that first sentence, because it's very basic. That's probably a D grade sentence right there. So you're going to, expand on it and go, this included the velocity of the river, the depth, the width, the class size and shape, wet perimeter and gradient. So you're basically explaining what parameters are there, which is good for the examiner as they will, know what you were studying. The next sentence is a crucial one. Now this, I didn't include until I looked at the mark scheme, so this is important. They say they want you to include a theory. Now our theory that we looked at before going out onto the field to get data was the Bradshaw model. So the Bradshaw model basically states how river parameters change downstream. We used the Bradshaw model as the theory of our investigation to see if it applied to the River Holford. One of the things the theory suggests is that velocity increases despite gradient decreasing. So there I'm including something that the...
Whoa, what? Velocity increases. Gradient decreases.
I know.
It's geography. It is geography.
Right, I've lost my spot. Yeah, there I'm including, part of the theory, so the examiner can see that I understand the theory. And then I basically explained why this is the case. This is due to larger mass of water allowed in the channel further downstream as less friction as rocks have been rounded and eroded down to smaller sizes. Now, Robbie, what do you think of that question? Would you be happy if you saw that in the exam?
So you can't really go into too much detail, which is kind of lucky, because I look at that question and I'm like, that's a bit of a
bitch.
Yeah, a little bit. Hypothesis, which formed the basis of the field. Yeah. It's so much easier when you actually read it.
So that's important. When you guys get in the exam, make sure you read the questions. Don't jump straight in. Read it a few times. Think about what you could write. Maybe even jot down a few bullet points, and then you can get started.
Yes.
That's what I suggest. Anyway.
That's fair enough. Should we move on to the next? Describe the advantages of your fieldwork location for 5 marks. So, firstly and foremost, advantages. It says describe the advantages. The hook's in the question there. Describe advantages. We're going to go with the River Holford again because that's all we know. So you're going to need clear reference to the suitability / advantages of the site. So suitable terrain. It allowed us to go in at 6 points and measure the depth. Yeah, it was easy to get to. You got to remember to develop your point a little bit, and then give the examiners some evidence of the point. You've got to link back to your hypothesis, which is key to gaining the top marks.
Key, absolutely key.
Link it back to your hypothesis and the hook in the question.
Some notes that I jotted down when Robbie told me this question just now. I said we were able to walk most parts of the route, which made everything easier.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I'd Totally agree.
And I said the river was safe after we undertook a full risk assessment of the whole location.
Went
This is
through
important.
risk assessments yesterday, so
Yeah, if you haven't seen that video, go back, have a look.
yeah,
You know.
subscribe.
We also had trained guides who knew the area really well, so this minimised any dangers.
Andy.
Andy, good old Andy, he knew his stuff, I'll tell you that for nothing.
Buddy.
The site was also close to roads, so this meant it was easy access in case of any accidents that occur. The river was accessible along much of its course, allowing us to investigate downstream changes.
But as we look at the examiner's report into that question, yep, so for level 2, 4 to 5 marks, it says clear reference to suitability / advantages of site. Consider more than one advantage.
More than one, so you make sure you're including more than one, even though it's only 5 marks. 2 or 3 would probably be.
I wouldn't say 3. I'd say 2.
Depends how much detail you're going to go to.
How much time you have.
Yeah.
And the advantages are clear and relevant with developed ideas. And the better responses to the questions provided a specific location, context, and referred to the benefits of the site. Chosen in terms of the aim, so it's chosen in terms of the aim. Linking it back to the question. Okay?
Always link it back to the question.
Always.
Always.
Not just with Geography 2, with any exam. Anything. It's always link it back to the question.
Then the examiner knows you understand you're trying to answer.
You're on track.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Next question.
Do you want choose your one?
Describe one method of primary data collection I think we'll look at next. How's that one sound?
It sounds good to me.
Yeah. Me and Robbie really like this question. We think we know a lot about it and we've been looking at it a lot in the preparation for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And we think we could answer it well.
I mean, yeah.
Describe one method of primary data
Oh,
collection.
is yours just describing method?
Yeah. What was yours? Describe and justify one method of primary data collection used. Yeah, but yours is an 8 marker, mine's a 5.
Yeah, sorry.
But I mean, this is what could happen. We could.
I was reading that, he was reading that. Completely different kettle of fish. Completely different.
Yeah. Let's just describe one method of primary data collection we did. Yeah?
It's not as easy as it sounds because there are so many methods of primary data collection that we did. It's hard to choose one in particular. It's not a case I can't do it, I just can't decide. I've been trying to do these questions for the last few days and I just can't decide which primary method to use. So you've got to think, what can you write the most about in the most detail?
You want to be for this question. You want to be able to write about your method in so much detail that the examiner would be able to go out onto the river and do it just by reading your answer. So I was speaking about the wetted perimeter, measuring the wetted perimeter. So I said at each site we used a chain and a tape measure. So we used the chain to put along the riverbed from the points of which the water touched.
Exactly, that's exactly it. It's the wet part of the river.
Yeah, the wet part of the river, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we used the chain, put it along, and then by placing it along the riverbed and the point of the chain on each side of the river that were no longer in contact with the water, we measured using the tape measure. So we took the chain out of the river, extended it, held the 2 points that where it was wet, and we used the tape measure. And then I went on to say about how this method was the best way to collect this kind of data. I said that using a tape measure to measure the wetted perimeter was a lot more difficult because the current of the water made it difficult to keep the tape measure along the bottom of the bed. So using a chain allowed it to just be a lot easier and quicker.
We are talking about
data.
riverbeds here, not chains in our beds.
Now, do you want to describe a different method of data collection?
Not only am I going to describe a different method of data collection, I'm just going to change the question a little bit. Change from a 5 marker to an 8 marker. Describe and justify one method of primary data collection used in your field work.
Justify.
Describe.
Justify.
Describe.
Justify.
Describe.
Justify.
Describe.
Justify.
Describe.
Justify. Describe. Justify. Describe.
Bed load size is what I and my partner chose. We used random selection of sampling to ensure non-biased sampling. We would do this by closing our eyes and reaching between our legs. And you pick up the first stone you feel, you measure it. And you measure it with the, get that last lesson, wooden caliper. Once you measure this, you do it again 4 more times. 5 times each side. So we did this 6 times. And the size got smaller. Yeah, you got to justify.
To justify would be saying, like, why was it a good method to use? Why was it a bad method?
Because that's what I wrote. It was a good method of data collection because it was accurate and the ease of use enabled us to gain more detail and more reliable data to interpret.
Interpret.
And interpret. I just see it as interpret. Interpret? Interpret.
Shall we?
You don't need to know how to say it right as long as you write it correctly, then you get. Yeah. Gone for a 5 and an 8.
You shared some knowledge.
As always.
As always.
So that was one of those pauses. Cut. That's it from us for this session.
Until next time.
Goodbye. Bye.